Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have a book video talking about uneven trilogies and series and talking about what makes them so uneven for me and which ones books in a series I like versus ones I don't like, and talking about series because sometimes you talk about series that are just amazing through and through, or trilogies that you love all the way through, or trilogies that are like meh all the way through, or trilogies that are good but not amazing and like they're consistent. Today I want to talk about inconsistencies because I find I have a lot of series which are inconsistent. In fact, I have 7 that I'm going to talk about for this particular video. There were others that came close that I said they're not like they're like it's like one might be a 9 out of 10, one might be an 8 out of 10, one might, like I'm talking generally that these books, these 7 series I'm talking about have a pretty big disparity between how I feel about the various books in there. And so we're going to talk about the inconsistencies and just generally how I felt about them. So let's start with the first series. I'm going to talk about the Kingdom of Liars series, which is also known as The Legacy of the Mercenary King, which is a little bit of a mouthful. This is by Nick Martell. I actually met Nick Martell at DragonCon last year, and he was so nice to sign my books. But his first book, Kingdom of Liars, I loved it. I'm going to talk about, just for brevity's sake, I'm going to talk about how many stars I gave it out of 5 stars. So, Kingdom of Liars, I'd give like a 4 stars out of 5. I really enjoyed it. It was a blast to read. Great debut. Amazing that he got it sold when he was like 23. Really entertaining work. And so I really enjoyed that. And then you have book 2 that came out, The Two-Faced Queen. And I picked this book up on release day. I was really interested in reading this book. And it was okay, but I gave it like a 3 out of 5. Like, it was just okay. And then I read book 3, which was also a release day book, The Voyage of the Forgotten. And for me, it was like a 2-star. Like, it's forgotten for a reason. It just wasn't that entertaining a book, and it was so sad to see this trilogy stumble. So again, you saw it inconsistent, where it started out great, then it was just okay, and then I thought the third book was bad, which was just terrible that you have that in a trilogy. But I still say give book 1 a try to see if you like the writing style. I'd say the writing style is pretty consistent. I just didn't like where he took the story. But the feeling of the books, that you have one book that's great, one book that's just okay, and one book that's bad, that's unfortunate to have. Let's talk about another trilogy that's inconsistent. You have the first book in the Winter Night Trilogy by Catherine Arden, The Bear and the Nightingale, Catherine Arden, I also really enjoy her middle grade series that I have, the Small Spaces Quartet. But this is her debut breakout. It's called fantasy. It's really, I would call it historical fairy tale, because it really feels more like a fairy tale than it does epic fantasy, at least for the first 2 books. But you have the first book, The Bear and the Nightingale, which I read in the wintertime. It feels very much like a wintertime read, if you like it. The whole trilogy does. This book I gave it like a 3-star out of 5. It was okay. The prose was a little flowery for me. I didn't love it. Then you had The Girl in the Tower, which was such an entertaining book. I gave this like a 4 out of 5 stars. I loved The Girl in the Tower. I thought it was really entertaining. I thought the plot was so strong here. And so I was like, it's a step up. I'm so excited. Catherine Arden's getting better as an author. And then I read Winter of the Witch, the 3rd book in the trilogy. And I just thought, Catherine, what are you doing? Catherine Arden, why are you making these choices for these characters? And I did not like the way the trilogy went with this book. And I just felt, I gave this like a 2 stars. So again, a series where the first book was okay, the second book was great, third book was bad. So I've talked about 2 series where the third book was the worst. So you might be saying, Jonathan, you just hate third books in the trilogies. Not necessarily, because let me talk about my next series, and that is Dave Wolverton's The Golden Queen, which I do have reviews for all 3 of these books on the channel. I read The Golden Queen, and it was a very entertaining read. I'd say it was a very entertaining book. Had a blast. It's very cheesy, very campy sci-fi. I'd say it's like if Willow is that kind of campy fantasy, this is campy science fiction, and I really enjoyed it. Then you had Beyond the Gate, which just, I mean, why? I gave this book a 3 stars for an okay rating, but I could have given it a 2 star. It was right on the edge of a 3 and a 2 star. I mean, this book, it was just why make these choices was not nearly as entertaining as it should have been. And he had the ingredients. It's like when you have all of the right ingredients to make a good product, but you over put in certain ingredients and like too much, you put in too much salt, not enough sugar, you put in too much butter, not enough cream or whatever it is. That's what Beyond the Gate is. It had the ingredients to be an amazing book, and it just fell flat on its face, which was really unfortunate. Then you had Lords of the Seventh Swarm, which is an amazing, amazing book. I would give it like a 5 stars out of 5. It was an amazing, amazing read, and I was just like, darn, Dave Wolverton, you coming out swinging hard with this one. And I much prefer Dave. His pen name is also David Farland. I much prefer his fantasy series, the Rune Lords. And Lords of the Seventh Swarm is the one book of his otherwise that I've read that I would put on the level of the Rune Lords, because I just thought this book was amazing, and I was like, boy, did you stick the landing. I do not think most people will like this one, but I loved it. And so this was a trilogy where it's like really, really great first book. Second book, and then amazing third book. So sometimes the third book can be the best one in the trilogy, and that's the case there. Now let's talk about a fantasy trilogy that I've talked a little bit about on the channel. I have reviews for all these books, and that is the Rap City Trilogy by Elizabeth Hayden. I know the Rap City series also extends into other books, and there's 2 more trilogies, I believe. I'm just talking about the first trilogy that I've read. You have the first book, Rap City, which I love this book. 5 stars out of 5. Then you have Prophecy, which I'd say is like a 3 star out of 5. And then Destiny, which is a 5 star out of 5. Honestly, as individual books, Rap City and Destiny, probably, if I was ranking individual fantasy novels as like whether they're part of a series or standalone, and I just said just ranking fantasy novels, these are for sure in my top 20. One of them, this one is for sure in my top 10. This one might also be in my top 10, just pure fantasy novels, because they're just so amazing. But this series is dragged down by book 2, which I just feel suffers from the ultimate thing known as middle book syndrome. Really felt, and I would say that the Golden Queen trilogy also has middle book syndrome, but Prophecy just, there are entertainment moments and entertaining sequences and entertaining elements of Prophecy. So it's a strong 3. It might be even 3.5 out of 5. But it's nowhere near the quality of books 1 and 3, which are just top tier fantasy for me. I mean, for one, by the way, those covers and this cover too, gorgeous. But just the story and the writing quality and everything about what Elizabeth Hayden did here was just amazing. So that is that. Let's move on to a science fiction. Now I did some science fiction fantasy series before. The rest of them are just science fiction. And the first one I'll talk about is John Ringo's trilogy, his Troy Rising trilogy. You had book 1, Live Free or Die. I call this the maple syrup book. If you've read the book, you know. If you know, you know. This book is really good. Really good book. I really enjoyed it. I'd give it like a 4 out of 5 star. Like solid, enjoyable, really good book. And then you had book 2, Citadel. And I was like, it's okay. It's entertaining, but it's not amazing. I gave it like a 3 out of 5. And then you have book 3, which is also a 3 out of 5. John Ringo is, with the first book, the good significantly outweighed any bad elements, which is why I gave it 4 out of 5. For books 2 and 3, it felt so even. It felt so like there were some good elements, there were some bad elements, but the good just could never outweigh the bad. It just kind of was kind of even. And that's why books 2 and 3. So again, trilogy where good first book, and it's on books 2 and 3. Now, getting into another author, this is my favorite science fiction author of all time. This is Timothy Zahn. I sing the praises of his books all the time. I love his books. He has the Icarus series, is one of the most consistent science fiction series I've ever read. I give all of them about the same rating. Like, it's amazing how consistent he is with that series, and with a few of his other series as well for science fiction. But he has one science fiction trilogy that, again, feels uneven to me. That is his Cobra series. You have the first book, Cobra, which unfortunately mine is old and falling apart. My copy, sorry. All three of them are old and falling apart. This is a top-tier science fiction novel. As an individual science fiction novel, one of the best I've ever read. I loved this, 5 out of 5 stars. Then you had Cobra Strike, which, again, cover's kind of falling apart. It's taped up. It was okay. I'd give it like a 3 out of 5. Maybe. And then you had book 3, Cobra Bargain, which I gave it like a 4 out of 5. It was really entertaining. So again, you had a trilogy where it's like, amazing book 1, book 2, and then book 3 is pretty good. Book 3 is pretty good. So that's another. And so my final one is probably going to be my both least controversial and most controversial. Maybe it's my least controversial one, because when I explain it, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. Now, hardcore fans of this next series are gonna be like, actually, you're wrong. But I think generally people will understand how I feel about this trilogy. And some people would say, that's not a trilogy, Jonathan. I know. But I'm counting it as a trilogy for this, and you'll understand why. And that's the Dune saga. You have the first book, Dune. You have the second book, Dune Messiah, and the third book, Children of Dune. It's the Dune trilogy because it's following Paul Atreides. Anyway, the first book, amazing book. I actually originally gave it like a 4 out of 5 or 4.5 out of 5, and I bumped it up to 5 out of 5 because I reread it recently. My review is also on the channel, as most of these are, and I loved this book, and I love the Dune universe, and I am like a big, like I've watched the movies multiple times, I've read the books before, I've read this one twice, and I've read the Kevin Anderson books with Brian. I love Dune. Then you had Dune Messiah, and I was like, what are you doing, Brian? I didn't enjoy this book at all. People are like, it's much better paced, and I'm like, yeah, but I just didn't like the story at all. The story was just why'd you do that to us? And then you had book 3, which I'll give it this. This one's enjoyable, whereas I didn't find Dune Messiah enjoyable at all, really. But Children of Dune's enjoyable, but man, it's just not with the quality of book 1. So again, amazing book 1 quality, and then for book 2, and then book 3 was okay. So that's my different books in series that I would say are uneven. Talking about where one book in the series is amazing and another book is just okay. Maybe another book is bad. So if you've read any of these, do you agree with how I would describe these books? Do you think I'm kind of way off on some of these? Do you think I am not giving certain books and series credit? Or do you have your own series that you've read? Do you have a trilogy here or there that you're like, oh, I would definitely put this as an uneven, and tell me why it's uneven, all that stuff. So let me know all those things in the comments section down below. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.